So today we are talking on the topic of shame. We all feel shame at one point or another. Um, so this is going to be fun.
Yeah, Emma, are you ready for a tough one?
No, but we're doing it anyway.
Yeah. Do you know why you're not ready for a tough one? Or can I tell
Um,
you why you might not be ready for a
yeah, go
tough
on
one?
then. Go on then.
Well, both of us come from a place that in which shame is a dominant emotion, a dominant negative emotion amidst others. So some people have a primary emotion of anger, and we've talked about that. Others have a primary emotion that's more around fear. We've talked about that. And this one is the third one. And we both sit in that place. So it might be hard to talk about.
Yeah, I'm happy to own my crap though. So
Well, and that's part of the benefit of having done the work, right? That's
yeah.
actually a really interesting point. Well, let's talk about our experiences of shame. Emma, what's your experience of shame as you identify it, at least in this moment?
Um, Shame for me is when I have done behaviors that somebody pulls me up on and they tell me that it was a bit crap. And when I look at it, I have to agree. It's like, yeah, that was kind of rubbish. Um, it's taken me a long time to get to the point of not like feeling the shame and be defensive or bend the truth about what it actually was. I
Okay.
am now able to look at it and say, do you know what? You're right. It was bad. Like, hands up. And I'm okay. I can deal with my shame. Like, I'm comfortable with my shame. Um,
So can I draw um, a distinction in definition here?
mhm,
So I think what you are talking about there is what I would call being ashamed.
mhm,
Being ashamed is where you feel some appropriate guilt about some of your own behavior,
yeah,
but your behavior is not your identity, right? It's not the
yeah,
essence of Emma.
yeah,
So I'd like to suggest to you that shame is something that is put on us by others
yeah,
and co-opted by ourselves as a belief
yeah,
about the essence of me.
yes,
That is almost always not true.
yes. So what I was saying is I used to feel it and then I've managed to come back from that, if you know what I mean, because I know what I am now.
So, am I hearing then that you can separate
Yes.
what is about your behavior that may genuinely, I mean, you said, I realized my behavior was a bit shit, right? Yeah, right.
hmm
That is appropriate, being appropriately ashamed of something I've done versus who you are. So for me, if I can just throw in
hmm
something here, when I think about times that I have felt what I call genuine shame, is when, for example, I have not understood something, particularly in my formative years. Like I struggled with maths as a kid, right?
hmm
Absolutely sure I am undiagnosed numerically dyslexic. There's just no doubt about it in my mind.
Hmm.
And because I was not able to do the math, chop, 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 like I expected to be able to, because I struggled, and because some, you know, key figures in my life couldn't understand why I couldn't understand,
Hmm.
I felt shame over that. I think that another great example is the feeling you get when you have been bullied,
Yeah.
because that is actually one of the ultimate shame inducers. You are being bullied because of who you are walking along the street, in my case,
It's hard.
right?
Hmm.
That I had an English accent in a Scottish school, for example, that I lived in a bigger than average house. It was
Yes.
just about things that I could not change. So bullying is, and that throws a lot of shame.
Yes. I have that one exactly about the size of the house. Um, and like it wasn't a mansion. It's just a bit bigger. Um, but yeah, it's its shame seems to move throughout the years. Like obviously your sense of shame as a child kind of starts out and then it kind of sets the scene for your life. But it moves and changes as you grow older, I think, depending on
Yes,
how much work you've done.
yes, it does. It does. And it influences how you deal with shaming messages that you receive
Hmm.
later on in life. So to take a step into that space, shame is one of the, if not the most commonly used tool, I think, to control children,
Yes.
right? We say, don't do that. That was stupid. That was silly,
Hmm.
and it becomes an attack on, or, it's not intended, it's unintended messages, right? That we pick up. And we pick up these unintended messages because um, when we're children, we grow up in those formative years believing that the world revolves around us,
Hmm.
right? And so um, the affirmation of ourselves as individuals, usually expressed through, approval or connection or love, when that is broken
Hmm.
by these messages that are thrown out there, like, you ought to be able to do this maths, Amanda. It causes Amanda to then question her value as an individual. There's something wrong with me because I can't do X, Y, or Z,
Hmm.
right? And so that's where it comes from. And then, what we experience shame over, those messages that cause us shame, we repress. And so for me, that meant that I um, wasn't good enough, could not meet expectations.
Hmm.
And so instead of like addressing that message, I just tried harder and harder in covert ways to prove that I was good enough or was lovable or could fulfill expectations in different ways, right?
The I am enough statement, as I
Yes.
am.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that this is the key difference, Emma, between fear and shame. And this occurred to me as I was percolating on doing this podcast, and after we recorded the fear one, as you had brought up that um, "Am I enough?" question, right? And I think that the difference between fear and shame, or one of the key differences, is that fear worries that something might be true. So there's a fear that it might be affirmed in the future,
Mm.
right? I'm afraid of something that might happen or might be true. Where shame says, you are not enough. I am not. It is a present state of being, not just a potential. And I
Yeah.
think that's a key difference between fear and shame.
So it's brutal as a child, really. I think everybody has to walk those corridors because that you have to tell the child what the social norms are.
Yes,
Um, and it has to be backed up with like what the issue is and then backed up with love as well.
yes. So it's not actually about what you're trying to teach, it's about the way you try to teach it.
Hmm.
I
Exactly.
think that's a critical point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe, I know you have little ones at home, Emma. When your 3-year-old is having a meltdown, how do you try to handle that?
Yeah. Honestly, I wait it out. If I can't reach him because his amygdala is just running the show, he literally it's like his ears don't work anymore. I just have to tell him, like I'll just hold you until this is finished, and then we can talk, and then explain things. And do you know it's fascinating about how when I ask him what it is that was perhaps not the best that he'd done, sometimes he says something else completely, which is so far removed from what the situation was. So he doesn't even really know what the problem was, even though it's
Can you
being
think of an
explained.
example off the top of your head?
Um, literally like he hit Daddy in the face. So obviously we use the timeout step. So he goes on the timeout step and he's on the timeout step for hitting Daddy in the face, and we've explained it all. And then we go back to him and it's like, okay, do you know why you're on the timeout step? And he says something else. It's like, but we just explained to you why you're here 3 minutes ago. So you can see how, like, even from a small age, the is bonkers. The brain is bonkers. Like they can't hold on to anything. And you can see how all those mixed messages can create beliefs about oneself and that wasn't ever
Yep.
what was intended. So yeah, sometimes like when he's super upset, we just wait it out and we hold him until it's finished and then talk to him about what the issue was.
And that's the thing, right? You're talking to him about the behavior, right? So it's
Yes.
very different to say, it is not okay to hit daddy in the face.
Hmm.
That's different from saying, you are a naughty boy,
Yes, it is.
right? So the you are a naughty boy is like a universal message
Hmm. Yeah.
that, there's risk that he would take on, right?
Yeah.
I am a naughty person.
Yeah. And that
And
stays for life. Hmm.
yes, it does. And yeah, I can think of somebody we both know very well, actually, I think, who took on that message that she was a naughty girl at a very young age.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, she's worked through a lot of that, but that belief that fundamentally, you know, she wasn't okay or um, didn't have anything positive to add to the world really
Yeah.
affected her as she went
Yeah.
through life. So, yeah. So, I mean, so I was thinking about some of the other shaming or things that I've felt. I guess what I'm trying to say is I've done a lot of work with shame in my life and how it's played out. And because I've done the work, I don't actually hold the
Mm.
shame for some of those things that I once did. Um, and so, one of the examples might be that I held a tremendous amount of shame for the fact that um, I would steal some, nominal amounts of money from my mother in particular when I was, a young age, like kind of that 10, 11, 12 age. And I felt a lot of shame. I couldn't understand, going back to the whole understanding, couldn't understand why I did that. I really didn't. Before that, I have an even earlier memory of um, not understanding why I was coming home from school every day with all of the polish rubbed off the toes of my shoes. And the message I got was, I should know. I ought to know. And I literally didn't. And it was only after, I think mum asked school if they had any idea, because I was literally putting holes through my leather shoes. Like, I can understand why my mother was upset about this, right? But we had been playing mummies and daddies in the playground, and I guess I had been the baby. So I'd been crawling along, dragging my feet behind me. I literally had no clue. But I was so, yeah, felt a lot of shame about that. Gosh, I was 4 or 5 years old. That memory is. And then the stealing, I was in my 30s when I finally understood that the reason I had done that was all around my sense of belonging when we moved to Scotland from London. Do you know, I took a lot of that money and I didn't keep it. I gave it away to other people because I was buying love. I was trying to
Literally
buy
with the
love with that.
cash.
Right.
Oh,
Yep,
oh.
which is classic for my personality type, right? That feeling unloved and not worthy of love
Mm,
and feeling so bullied and rejected in a Scottish school. Um, I mean, there's nothing wrong with Scottish schools, but just understand, it would be like for an American equivalent, it's at the age of 8, when I moved from 500 miles from England into Scotland, it would be a bit like a kid from Mississippi moving to Chicago. And
hmm
I don't think I have to explain anything more. I think Americans would understand what that might look and feel like.
hmm
So, but I carried that shame about having stolen from my mother and not understanding why for decades
mm,
until I understood that it was all around my sense of belonging. And then I was able to let it go. And so, but it was hard work to address what those shame messages were that I was carrying so close to my heart
hmm
in shadow because it was so scary
mm.
to look at them. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've held anything like that, Emma, or thoughts about that.
Uh, not any as bad as that.
Yeah. Mhm.
But what I'm curious to ask you is so obviously that's like heavy levels of shame um based around childhood events. So how would shame then translate into adult life? So in terms of like how you're running your life, how you're running your business, like
Mhm. So this core belief that I am not enough or not worth enough um, has translated into not having enough confidence to push myself forward.
hmm
So, for example, I mean, we kind of laugh about it now. Like, I'm the corporate girl in the family, right? And the rest of you have all um, developed your own businesses, ideas, and been successful with that. I have never seen myself as an entrepreneur, ever, because I'm not willing to take the risk because of those shaming messages, not willing to take the risk of putting myself out there and selling my wares, if you like, out of fear of rejection.
hmm
And I think that with the stories I've just told you, I don't need to explain why I have that inner fear of rejection. Um, and so, yeah, that risk is that my effort to connect with others won't be enough to get what I want and need. And I'm afraid to ask for what I want and need, or at least, you know, I'm not afraid in the same way that I have been, but it's something I have to be very conscious about. So in the corporate setting, I'm already there. There's much less risk in asking for what I want or need in that setting, though I have also needed to be very careful about not becoming the yes woman
Mm-hmm.
because people quickly learn that I am, in fact, highly capable and very reliable and someone that they can ask to get something done and it will get done.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side of that, there's the resentment that comes from why am I always the one that's doing? Well, actually, I'm always the one that's doing because I'm the one that has proved that I will always do because that is how I receive the validation of my existence, basically. That's a good work example. In my personal life, I was married to an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
And I am absolutely sure that part of the attraction there was the idea, the perception that somehow how I could help him with his issues. I needed to be needed.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, you kind of sacrifice yourself. Um, and I have to own that. That's not his fault.
Mm-hmm.
I did that to myself.
Yeah.
I had to do that work around the codependency. So that's me. Like I will externalize my shame and try and get other people to fulfill um, the my ego need, which isn't bad, it's necessary, but for love and connection and all the rest of it, right? There are some people who are more likely to repress and just avoid their shame completely, right?
Mm-hmm.
They relentlessly pursue success or the outward image of success in order to kind of cover for their own inner world of inadequacy, um, trying to kind of outrun shame. But you know what? Wherever you go, there you are. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually, you know, uh, you can't outrun that shame and you can't perform and perform and perform and perform without burning out.
Yep.
And then that burnout validates that inner message of worthlessness that they have for themselves, that inner emptiness. And unless you address it and reframe those messages and understand who you really are, the essence of you, then it's going to become self-fulfilling. And then there's other folks that might be a little more like you, Emma,
Mm-hmm.
who internalize their shame to the greatest degree, um, and feel like have this sense of I'm inherently flawed or
Mm-hmm.
defective and kind of swim in an inner morass of messy negative feelings
Yep.
that they um, put on themselves, like believe that they must be solely responsible for,
Yeah.
and live in that world rather than like so whereas I will try and get those perspectives corrected.
Mm-hmm.
You're more likely to live in that world and believe that it's true. And I simply am not enough and I never will be. Is
Yeah.
that true for you?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So it's interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, um, so how do we get to, healing this shame? What are the steps for doing that? I mean, I guess we've talked through some of them already. I think one of the critical ones is to separate. what is shame, i.e., messages put onto us by other people,
Yeah.
and what I genuinely own and am ashamed, appropriately guilty for doing the behaviors that I may have expressed that were inappropriate.
Yeah. Well, there's generally a few things um that you can do. So one is the whole self-compassion thing. Um, which some people can cringe at this. I used to cringe at it, but actually, if you treat yourself as you would a friend with kindness and understanding, that goes a long way. It can be incredibly difficult to do that because if your inner monologue is negative, negative, negative all the time, it feels alien and it does feel kind of cheesy and awkward. But if it feels awkward, then there you have it. There is your problem. So start doing it and feel awkward, and all of a sudden things might start improving for you because you're getting out of your own dirty pit.
Right. Yeah, actually, to add to that, one of the key things that I've taught in different settings, actually completely different sections, is a compliment is a gift to
Hmm.
you. Okay. If I was to wrap up a present for you right now and give it to you, would you stand on it?
Nope.
I'm hoping that you would say, "Oh, thank you. Can I open this now?" Blah, 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 right? A gift, treat a compliment as the gift that it is, including the compliments that you give yourself. Right?
Exactly. It's so difficult to do. I would love to know what the percentage of people were out there that can actually do this. I imagine it's probably quite low.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, and that's why in one of the other settings that you and I have run in, we focus on I am statements, positive I am statements.
yeah,
And that's about giving yourself affirmation of who you are. That is a
exactly.
shame lifter in
Yeah,
and of itself.
exactly. Um, Another thing that you can do is you say a problem shared is a problem halved, but like talking about your shame with other people,
Mhm.
because sometimes people looking from the outside in, they'll be like, wow, really? Like, I don't
Yeah.
see this at all, you know? It can put things in perspective for you.
Yeah. And it would have to be somebody that you implicitly trust,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because there is a risk. There's a risk. There's a reason we hide our shame
Hmm.
because there's a risk of bringing it out into the open.
Yeah.
So generally, I would say don't be sharing those or trying to resolve those shame messages with the person who gave you that message about
Mm-mm-mm.
yourself.
No, no, no.
They are not the person to do that with.
No. That's just
Yeah,
going to open up a whole can of worms and make it a lot worse, probably.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. If you didn't get the validation, the message, the appropriate message from that person, then it's very
Mhm.
unlikely you're going to get it now.
No.
So,
So some of the other things we can do as well is name the shame. Just name it. It is what it is. Here we go. Let's sort it out. It's kind of like catching yourself doing things, like your triggers and all those things. And when it happens, get curious rather than hurt yourself about it.
yes. Yes. Yeah.
And
Anything else?
and lastly is just challenging your inner critic. Just tell it to pipe down and have more of a positive view. Because our
For
inner
some
critic
people,
can,
that inner critic is like a parrot on their shoulder
oh,
doing this
oh
all the
yeah,
time.
it can be brutal. And that is the thing that stops you from progressing with anything
Yeah.
across your personal life and into your work life. Um, and people can have goals, but they never actually get on the first rung of the ladder to get there because the inner critic's saying, well, it's going to probably go wrong, or you've not thought about this, or really shouldn't take a risk like that. And it
Right. Or you're
just,
not good enough to do this. or you
Yeah.
don't have what it takes. You don't have enough knowledge. You are not.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've definitely challenged myself with some of those things. I've definitely had imposter syndrome with things and
Yeah.
just had to tell it, no, we're doing it anyway, carry on. And then actually discovered that I did know something about what it is I was trying to do.
Yes. Okay. So I have one final thought that I'd like to leave everybody with. Actually, it's a quote from Carl Jung,
Oh, yes.
and it is, unless you make the unconscious, your shame, conscious, so unless you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Yes. Oh, God, I love that. Yeah, never been a big believer in fate myself.
But you know what? It goes with the whole, and maybe this is another podcast, Emma, you know, it's heaven all the way to heaven and hell all the way to hell, and you make it for
Yep.
yourself,
Yep.
right? So
And
again,
isn't that it's such an amazing thing because actually you are empowered to do what it is you want to do. You
yeah,
are like you hold the power and the keys to everything. You've just got to dig in it to get there.
yeah. So once again, unless you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Thank you, Amanda. I think we should leave it there.
I think we should.